Hey, it's Greg Otten here, and this is an episode from the very first season of the Maritime Gardening Podcast. I've been doing this for a number of years now, and you can listen to the current season at my podcast website, maritimegardening.com. It's completely free. But I thought I'd put the older episodes, start putting the older episodes up on my YouTube channel for people that just prefer to consume online content in that way. So we'll give that a try, and if people seem to be enjoying it, I'll keep doing it. And if you really enjoy it, you can go to my website, maritimegardening.com, and listen to any one of the episodes I've ever done or the current season. So have a listen.
So what are we going to talk about today, Greg?
We're going to talk about, a general discussion on planting dates, when things should be planted and that whole idea. I'm going to give you a list of things that can go in the ground now if you're so inclined. They don't have to go in the ground now, but if you want to put stuff, if we want to be eating food sooner, these are things that can go in the ground now. My top 5 greens, and also just a general discussion on permaculture, very brief, just to give you an idea of what that's all about, to give you an image in your mind of what that's all about.
Nice.
In case you're thinking of trying something different this year, or if you've never tried gardening, maybe you want to just start off with the whole new way of doing things that can be very much easier.
Yeah, sounds like my way of doing things, so that's perfect. That's perfect. So, as I've heard, a lot of people may not think that there's much that you can put in the ground until maybe later in May or whatnot. So, I guess we'll just let you get started and tell us otherwise.
All right. Yeah, well, a lot of people have in their mind this notion that, you can't plant anything till the end of May or Victoria Day, or some people call it May 2-4 weekend. I'm not quite sure why. But there's a lot of things that can go on the ground earlier than that. Some things can go on the ground as soon as the soil can be worked. They might not germinate right away, but they can, if you have a large garden, you don't want to have to do everything in one day. You can just sort of chip away at things, and the seeds won't be damaged by frost or cold, and they'll come up when they're ready. Certain plants, not every plant. A lot of plants, cold or frost or whatever, just kills them instantly. But it all comes down to frost dates. Some plants, the foliage just can't take frost, and it kills the whole plant.
Mm-hmm.
But also soil temperatures. A lot of seeds have a certain soil temperature that they need to germinate, and if they don't have it, and don't have it consistently enough, or if the soil, let's say the seed begins to germinate, you have a nice warm day, but then it gets really cold at night and the soil doesn't hold its heat, that whole process just stops and it can't start again. But some seeds are fine with that. They can take that. So, that's why certain things can go in at a certain time of year and certain things can't. So that's the question about planting dates. When is the soil warm enough, and when does the risk of frost go away? And there's no fixed date for that. It really depends. For instance, I went and looked today on the Farmer's Almanac, which many would consider a very reliable source, and I looked up Halifax, and it said May 1st. And I wouldn't put, they're saying that's the last frost date, May 1st.
Oh, yeah.
That's a bit, I wouldn't be putting out tomatoes right now. Maybe you could. Maybe I'd put out a couple, just as experimental ones. And maybe you can. Maybe it is. They're just basing that on all their existing data. But the other thing is, I looked at Kentville and Digby and Inverness, and it all said May 1st because it was all based on the Eastport, Maine Climate Center
right.
indication.
Yeah.
So that's, this isn't Eastport, Maine. And there's a lot of variability even between, like, I live out towards Peggy's Cove, and it's almost like alpine here. So I'll go, visit someone a little further inland, and it might be 5-10 degrees warmer.
Yeah.
I was working on a property yesterday, and there are black flies everywhere. I mean, I was swarmed, and they're not even here where I am.
Right.
You might get the odd, you might see one or two, but they're not even biting right now. Whereas there, I was being destroyed by them. So there's a lot of variability, even within a half-hour drive in this province, because we've got a coast, and we've got sort of low-lying areas and mountains, and we've got valleys, and just different conditions.
Yeah, and I mean, even New Brunswick, it's a whole lot different around, say, Moncton than it might be up in the St. John River Valley up around Fredericton.
Oh, Fredericton's almost like Southern Ontario, in the summer.
Yeah.
So, my point is that dates are very inaccurate. You use them as a guideline But really, wherever you are, your piece of land, that area, you need to sort of do little experiments every year, try putting things out at certain times of the year, and see what happens. And what I want to move towards personally, and I just had this idea last year, is instead of using, because I've always just based everything on dates and, look at the long-term forecasts and dates. And I honestly think that's a more reliable indicator. And this is as an angler, and you might know something about this, Dave.
Sure.
But something I used to do every year, the first sort of thing I would catch would be smelts.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that knows anything about smelts, they don't come up the rivers. Smelt is a tiny little fish that people who traditionally would net. You can also jig them, but it's kind of inefficient. But anyway, it's these tiny fish. They live in the ocean, and once a year they come up the rivers to spawn. And you can just get like tons of them, and they're very. You catch them fresh. You usually catch them, and you have everybody over, and you have a big party, and you eat a bunch. A buddy of mine brought some over this year, and I ate 20,
Mm-hmm.
and one ate 20 souls.
Yeah.
My stomach. Anyway, anyone that knows anything about smelt fishing, you don't base it on a date. You know that it happens sometime in April, but what you listen for is that.
Mm-hmm.
These peepers outside, these little frogs that start coming out and trying to mate. You start putting your head out the window every night when it's dark, and once you hear that sound, you know it's time to go net some smelts.
Right.
And it's very reliable, much more reliable than anything else, because those frogs have evolved to. They're not going to start doing that too early because they could freeze to death, or they seem to know. I don't know how they know, and I don't need to know how.
Yeah.
Just know that they have been doing this for a long time, and that's a timing thing. And I honestly think that that's probably a better way to go with your gardening, because you're going to have a whole bunch of plants on your property and other things going on, certain birds that show up and so on. They're not going to do anything too early because they have evolved to just instinctively know when to do things. And if all the ones that didn't instinctively know when to do things didn't make it and didn't pass their genes on.
Right.
So, it's better just to sort of tune yourself into what's going on around you and make that your start date. So for me, certain things like that can be planted. It might say on the package, plant as soon as soil can be worked. When I do that here where I live, nothing happens for weeks just because it's just so cold here. So I've decided to try this year all those things that say plant as soon as soil can be worked. I put them in the ground as soon as I could hear peepers. I figure if it's warm enough for a frog to mate,
Yeah, that's a good
probably
point.
warm enough for a pea to germinate or something like that.
Yeah.
All the things that like cold. I'm going to try that and see what happens. And everything I just checked yesterday, and many of the things I planted that are early things are up. So I think there's other things too. There's certain, when the maple tree buds open, when there's dandelions everywhere. And when the dandelions open up, when this kind of dandelion, you see that yellow, that's probably an indication of something. There's probably a lot of indicators of things that aren't going to happen until lots of other things can happen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to start making a list of just being observant and marking those things down. And hopefully over time I can have a long list of things that are timed with other things.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
When the tulips come up, when the asparagus comes up, when the rhubarb comes up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That
Gotcha.
way, if you know all of those things, then you'll know when it's the right time to do something on your property in your tiny little microclimate, wherever you are. And your timing will be a lot more accurate, and you won't waste as much time.
So couldn't you test out, maybe a week apart and try a few different, try planting some seeds a few weeks apart in different parts of your garden and just label it differently to see which ones work the best? Or
Yeah, I do that all the time. Like a garden, and I think is the original laboratory. You can do genetic experiments, and you can plant seeds, and if they die,
right.
No one's going to challenge your ethics.
That's right.
You can have a lot of fun. But yeah, it's sometimes it's good to try something. Don't plant everything because then you might not have any more seeds. But
Gotcha.
it's good. There's been years I've planted beans. Beans can't go out till really the end of May. There's been years I planted them in the middle of May, and they grew and they were fine.
Sure.
There's years where I did that and they just rotted and died.
Yeah.
So it's always worth doing. I mean, every year I'll always always tell myself not to do it, and I do it every year. I put tomatoes out early and I kill them.
Yeah.
I do it every single year, and I was just thinking about it the other day because they're selling the transplants at the.
Yeah, we just got I picked up a few yesterday with my folks, and my sons planted them in a little planter along the side of my parents' house. So hopefully it doesn't get too cold.
Might be okay next to a house like that. That
Yeah.
sometimes depends on. Hopefully, they're on the south side of the house. Very important that they're on the south side of the house. Although if they're
Yeah.
transplants, they may need to be hardened off.
Right. Right.
Anyway, we're not talking about that today.
Sure. So what are you planting in late April, early May?
Okay, so I'm not planning all of these things, and this list is not exhaustive.
Sure.
Because no one wants me to listen to me list 50 things.
Right.
And I'm also, generally speaking, I'm not going to go into varieties. I'm just going to speak to particular plants, and you can choose different varieties, whatever you like. So peas, and I put my peas in April, I think the first week of April, because peas can take it, but they're just coming up now. I put them in probably 3 weeks ago, and they're an inch high. So
yeah,
I could have put them in a week ago, and they'd be an inch high. They grew when they wanted to grow. So if I put them in last week, they'd be an inch high right now, because peas usually start, they move pretty quick. So planting them early now I don't have to worry about it, right? So I can focus on other things. So peas are tough. I'd put them in the ground usually April 1st, and they come up when they come up, and they usually don't rot out. And same with carrots, beets, carrots and parsnips. I usually plant those very early as well. But again, so I put my carrots and parsnips in 3 weeks ago, and they're just starting to come up now.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'd probably put them in last week, they'd probably be the same height. So I was a bit early with that, but those seeds can take it. So they can take sort of freezing and cooling and being wet and cold. Some seeds can, some seeds can't.
Okay.
Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, collards. Collards, I'd wait a little bit longer. They don't like super cold. Once they're grown, the actual greens taste better once it gets cold.
Oh.
Leeks, green onions. I planted green onions a few weeks ago, and my green onions are up. Different kinds of greens. Parsley as well. You can put those seeds in the ground early. They'll take it. Turnip and most greens. And what's the date right now? May. It's May 9th.
Yeah, today.
So another thing you could maybe try. It depends on your soil and its temperature and what it's made of, but it's a bit early. But you could put potatoes in the ground. Potatoes, the soil has to be 5 degrees Celsius. Potatoes cannot freeze. They really don't like that. That being said, every year I'll have a couple potatoes that I did not pick, and they'll grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how that works, because there's been years I tried putting potatoes in the ground in September, and they all just rotted. But every year I'll have unpicked potatoes that grow. So why is it when I plant them in the fall, they die, but if I don't pick them, they're fine? There's something going on there.
There's something.
I want to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Anyway, if the soil is, just get a thermometer, and I know you've got one because you're a fly fisherman. It's the same sort of one. You stick that, put it at the depth you're going to put the potato, and bury it and leave it for 5 minutes, and then take it out. If it's 5 degrees, you can probably stick your potatoes in there. They might not do anything for a while, but that's okay. It's just one more thing done that you don't have to do later on. I'm going to plant a few this week, and I'm not going to plant. I plant a lot of potatoes. I think we have a whole episode on potatoes. They're just the most wonderful thing. Yeah. But I'm going to plant a few. A red potato is one that comes in really early. So I like to plant those first, so that I got potatoes, in sometime in July I start being able to get potatoes out of my garden, which is just great. So you could try that. It really depends. The soil's got to have that heat in it, otherwise the potatoes would just rot and die. But in like 2 weeks, just wait like a week or two, and you can plant them. Because I usually plant potatoes in the middle of May, and I've never had a problem with them rotting out.
Okay.
As long as your soil has reasonable drainage,
right.
They seem to do fine.
Nice. What would your top 5 greens be?
Greens, if you haven't got a lot of space, greens are pretty good bang for your buck, because a lot of them can be sort of harvested. When you buy kale at the grocery store, they just grab the whole plant and they cut it off, and they it's gone. They kill it, right? But if you have kale in your backyard, you just snap off leaves as you need them. You sort of snap them off from the bottom up, and there's a way to do it that's sort of ideal for the plant. But every variety of kale I'm aware of, you can harvest it as you want it. So, you plant you buy 6 kale transplants at the garden store for $2, and you've got kale for months and months, maybe even until November, maybe even December if you're, especially in Halifax where it's, so temperate.
Mm.
So kale's a great plant. That would be my number one green because it just keeps coming and keeps producing, and once things freeze in the fall, it actually tastes better. And I mean, a lot of people, the kind you would see in the grocery store typically is called Scotch curly kale, and it seems to be the popular kind. But I would say it's the least flavorful of the varieties. Another variety is called Red Russian. It can get huge. I mean, I've seen them over 2 feet high, and that Red Russian kale tastes better than Scotch curly kale,
Yeah?
in my opinion. It also looks much more impressive. It's just like this giant thing. And there's another kind of kale I think it's not as tough. I think it likes it a bit warmer because it's basically from Italy. It's called lacinato kale. Another term for it is Tuscan or dinosaur kale. And it's called dinosaur kale because it can grow like 3 feet high.
Oh, yeah?
That is by far the best tasting kale I've ever had. It's really, really good. But you can't plant that quite as early. I would plant that in the middle of May. I haven't had very good luck trying to start it early.
Were you into kale before it kind of became this
I
trend?
was.
This trend and mainstream and all the celebrities yapping about it?
Yes, I
Yeah.
was on the kale scene before it was cool.
There you go.
Because I was just a gardener, and the traditional green that everybody grows, and they're one of my top 5. When I would have grown up with this, we would have had Swiss chard, right?
Yeah.
But I'm very sort of curious person, so I was in the store and they had this other thing called kale, and I said, "Oh, I'll give that." I tried kale, I tried collard greens, I tried all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Kale was a great one. It's just a beautiful, when I just sauteed a bit with garlic and diced up bacon because that's tasted.
Man, that sounds good.
One slice of bacon and a whole pan of kale, and it tastes like the whole thing is bacon. So, I don't know if you're a vegetarian or whatever, you use maybe sun-dried tomatoes or something like that.
Yeah, that would work.
But if you're not, bacon, one slice of bacon, and you can cook this giant kale dish, and for like a family of 4, and the whole thing. It's a way to get my kids to eat it.
Sure.
We call them bacon greens as our marketing. Get the children into it.
Got to do what you got to do.
So kale's one. Kohlrabi is another very not a lot of people know about it. I bought kohlrabi seeds at a dollar store, and I've planted them that year because they were like 30 cents. And I've planted kohlrabi every year since. It's a plant that sort of, if you look at it, it looks like a turnip. I guess it's got this turnipy sort of thing at the bottom. And traditionally, as I understand, this is from in Eastern Europe, Germany, Czech Republic, that sort of thing, or former Czechoslovakia. It was grown for that root. But in my opinion, the root is the worst part of the kohlrabi. It grows these huge, thick greens that are very similar to collard greens, except I don't know anyone that's ever cooked collard greens, but you have to cook them for a very long time to get them tender. They're tough. They're really
I do them in a pressure cooker.
Yeah. So imagine a collard green that you can cook in 2 minutes, and that's kohlrabi. It's got a similar flavor. It's a very green, intense green. People come over to your house and they're eating these greens, and it just looks like you're eating the elixir of life sort of thing.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful, vibrant green color. They don't look like much when you pick them. It's when you cook them, they become this really green color, and they taste really good. So they're like a collard, except they cook in minutes, right? You just quick toss them around. Swiss chard, of course, and there's different kinds of kohlrabi. There's white, red, and there's also various varieties of like what they call giant kohlrabi. They might cost another, most seeds are $2.99 a pack. The giant ones tend to cost, most seeds are $1.99 a pack. From what I've seen, giant kohlrabis are $2.99 a pack, but
still,
it's worth it because you get these huge leaves and they just look amazing and they taste great. Swiss chard, I've tried many varieties. Giant Ford hook. A lot of people like to plant the rainbow Swiss chard, and that's fine. I like everything big. I mean, I find giant Ford hook. That's a heirloom variety. It's just a great, more reliable plant. I've had mixed results with the rainbow kale or spinach, and it doesn't taste any different. It just looks nice.
Mm.
Spinach is a great one. It would be bottom of my list. Same with lettuce because Swiss kohlrabi and kale, they're going to keep giving you greens. That one plant is going to keep giving you. Spinach sort of burns out. It does not like heat.
Right.
And as soon as you're getting at some point in July, it's just done. It starts going to seed and doesn't taste good anymore. And same with lettuce. There's all this timing you have to do with it. It gets a bit of you got to really like lettuce to want to grow it all the time because you got to plant one row this week and then 2 weeks later plant another row and 2 weeks later you got to be very sort of on top of it. And there's lots of things that love lettuce. And slugs love lettuce. Everything loves lettuce because it's so tender and so, nice. And also lettuce can be difficult to grow. I found a variety called Paris Island Cos. I don't know what the Cos stands for, no clue. But it's like a romaine lettuce like you get in the grocery store, only it actually tastes really good. And it's pretty, I grew great lettuce with that variety the first time I tried, whereas other forms of lettuce, had very mixed results.
Low maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, leaf lettuce is easy to grow, but it doesn't taste like anything. Flavor is really big with me. I love to cook.
Yeah.
It's just not just about, I like plants that are really easy to take care of, low maintenance, sort of just grow on their own as long as you give them the conditions they want. But also things that taste really good in your cooking. Sure. That Paris Island. But spinach and lettuce, those are sort of plants, or especially that Paris Island, you don't take off leaves as you need them. You just take the whole plant in, you just cut it off and take it in. That's it. I mean, little tiny lettuce will grow out of the root, but they usually don't amount to much.
Right.
Every year you sort of think they're going to do something, but they're just these little pathetic plants that don't really amount to much. Really, cut the whole thing off when it's its biggest and best and eat it.
Nice. Yeah, sounds good. I'm getting hungry on this episode.
That's good. That's what supposed to happen.
All right, so that was you covered your top 5 there, top 5 greens, I think. And
kale, kohlrabi, Swiss chard, spinach, and lettuce. That's probably
nice. Yeah, I'll mention the show notes at the end of the episode again. We'll have all this stuff listed. But what else did you want to go over before we wrap this one up?
Just want to talk a little bit about an idea that some people want. I don't know. The first year I heard about permaculture a number of years ago, and I adapted my garden to this approach to gardening, and the results were incredible. And I've really never gone back, and I absorb every information I can get about it. And it's one of those things where there's no one way to do it. You have to sort of figure out a way that you like, that works for you, that works with the resources you have, and is ideal for the location you're at. But a lot of the information on it sounds very complicated. It's very overcomplicated by the people that discuss it. And really, over the course of the show, I want to try to get out of that, because the beauty of permaculture is that it's not nearly as complicated as conventional gardening, and it's way less labor intensive. It has way fewer inputs. You don't have to stand out there watering your garden every morning, getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. All the things that people associate with gardening that make it a chore. Yeah. Many of them either go away completely or they're greatly reduced by a permaculture approach to gardening. So what I'm going to do is just try to create an image in your mind. What I experience in my garden when it's when it's in full swing. So let's say July, August, but that's when June even, we stop buying produce. We don't buy produce from some point in June onward. As soon as we start getting things out of our garden, the garden drives our diet. So there's a certain time, early June, we start getting spinach, and we start getting some greens and some radishes. Because I've got a large garden, we start eating a lot of those because the garden starts driving your diet. And then other things start growing. So the spinach sort of is going away, but the kale's coming on. So we're starting to eat more kale and more greens. And maybe we have some baby carrots, so we can eat some of those things. And then a bit later on, we get the peas coming. So we're eating peas all the time. And, your diet is being driven by the garden. I guess the image I want to give is, imagine if you walk out your back door and there's a forest in your backyard. And I'm using the concept of a forest because permaculture is supposed to work the way a forest works. But it's not a forest of trees. And when I say work the way a forest works, I mean it sort of takes care of itself. Just there's a forest behind my house. There actually is a forest, and I don't water it, I don't fertilize it, I don't weed it. It just takes care of itself. There's places where certain things grow and they're always there and they're always fine. So the whole notion of permaculture is to copy the way forests work and sort of copy those systems in your garden. So imagine you've got a forest behind your house, but instead of it being full of spruce trees and pine trees and bramble or whatever, it's got other kinds of plants growing in. It's got zucchini and beans and different kinds of greens and tomatoes and potatoes and different root vegetables. Whenever you want to have a nice meal, you just walk out your back door, you go into that food forest, and you take the things that you'd like to eat that day, and they're completely fresh, right? I mean, the way we get food now is you go to a grocery store, you buy food that was picked days or weeks ago.
Yep.
And you stick it in your fridge, and it sits there, and you try to eat it before it goes bad.
Yep.
So if you have that sort of a permaculture garden in your backyard, it's a whole different approach. It's land you own anyway. It's just sitting there, sucking up lime and fertilizer. So instead, you go back there, and all the things you like to eat, or maybe some things you're going to learn to like to eat, they're all there, and you just pick them as you need them. You go out in the backyard. You're out for 5 minutes, you come back and you've got a bowl of vegetables or maybe fruit. My strawberries are coming in right now. We're going to have strawberries. We've got a variety that produces all summer long. It's fantastic. So you come in, you go out there for 5 minutes, you come back with a bowl full of produce. And, you're just eating all this fresh, organic stuff all the time. You have to stay on top of it, or you're giving it to your friends because sometimes you get overwhelmed. There's too many things.
Right.
So it's just a wonderful thing to do. If you're interested in this, think of that goal in your mind. Wouldn't it be nice to have that? And then you start just doing little things to work towards that. You don't have to get there in 1 year. You can have a sort of long-term plan that you chip away at when you have time, and maybe a very short-term, okay, I'm going to do this year. And all you have to do, really, it's just like any other garden, generally in principle, except, and this is all I'm going to say about how to get there today, is to put a mulch. Once the plants are up a few inches, you put like an inch of some sort of mulch over the soil. Don't let that soil be exposed to the sun. The soil has to be covered in something, just like in a forest. You never see bare soil in a forest unless there's been some sort of flood or or soil erosion or something like that. It's always covered in needles and leaves and sticks and stuff like that. So you do the same thing in your garden, and you use whatever. Don't go to the garden store and buy bags of this mulch or that. Just use what's around. Use some, if your neighbor threw out some leaves, you grab those bags, run them over with your lawnmower a few times so they don't, when you run over leaves, they don't blow away as much. Run them over and throw that, make that your mulch. If you mowed your lawn with a bag on, use that. If there's a stable nearby and there's like a place where they throw all the whole old horse manure, there's usually in with the horse manure, there's like straw and hay and stuff like that. You can use that too. It tends to have seeds in it, but it's not a big deal, and depending on the scale of your garden, to deal with those seeds. But that's step one, is to just get into the idea of mulching. And there's many reasons why. I don't want to get into that today. Yeah. But bear that. If you want to try permaculture, aside from reading and absorbing all the stuff on YouTube, the simplest way of thinking of it is it's just like the kind of garden you have in your mind already, except there's always a mulch. Kind of the way people have been using it for ages for their flower gardens. Yeah. Right? They always put this mulch everywhere. Yeah. And why do you do that, right? Because you don't have to weed it and you don't have to water it so much. Well, why? It does the same. It works the same way in your garden. Cool. Exactly the same. And the worms love it. Makes them happy.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, so anybody who listened to the first episode is going to start to realize that the whole permaculture angle is going to be an underlying tone throughout the show.
It's just going to make, if you're new to gardening or if you've been gardening for years and you find it too hard, it's just it's a way to make that easy for you. You wouldn't believe the difference in the results you're going to get with less effort.
Well, that's what everybody's about now anyway, doing less and getting more.
Exactly.
Right. So
it's
perfect.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's a way of just you're figuring out a way to cooperate with nature, rather than trying to control it, and it'll work. It works really, really well. And we'll talk more about it as we go on.
Yeah.
I'll keep chipping on. I don't want to give a giant
No.
lecture or diatribe on it. But
Sure. So yeah, those of you who want to check the show notes, I'm going to summarize a lot of what Greg talked about. We'll list his top 5 greens and some of the other vegetables that he mentioned in there. Some of the ones I had never heard of for sure. I'm going to be Googling those, and we'll put some links in. And if you want to check that out, just go to maritimegardening.com/002. And I think that's it for today, Greg, correct?
That's it. Thanks a lot. It was great talking.
All right, and we'll see you guys all in the next episode. Take care. Have a great day.